Hey everybody, welcome to the Accessible Living with Ninja Nick podcast. My name is Kevin Lockwood, and I am one of the co-hosts of this brand new podcast. I'm joined by my son, the other co-host, the one and only Nick Lockwood.
Hey everybody, we are teaming up to bring you, the viewer or listener, valuable information that can help you or your loved one in your family living with a disability.
Get on board for the ride and journey down a path to a better understanding of accessible living. In the podcast that will follow, Ninja Nick, myself, and many others who will be interviewed along the way hope to bring you important information that will help you and others in your family. This is episode 1, so let's get started. Hey everyone, welcome to episode 1 of Accessible Living with Ninja Nick. We are super excited to be launching this podcast, and whether you are watching us on YouTube or listening to us on Spotify or some other platform, welcome. The purpose of today's episode is to introduce to you our family and tell you a little bit about us and why we want to launch a podcast. And Nick, I want to start off with you first. If you don't mind, tell the viewers at home, how did we come up with the nickname Ninja Nick?
It's my Xbox name.
Oh, it's your Xbox name. So that's like your gaming handle, and I know you use that for when you're playing the Xbox. And what about also, don't you have that as like some of your Gmail accounts or different email accounts and so forth use that same name as well? So Ninja Nick has been something we've used for quite some time here in our family. So Nick, tell the viewers also and listeners a little bit more about yourself.
I'm a type 1, and in my free time, I love to play video games and hang out on my computer. A little bit more about me. I graduated high school in 2022 from Ohio Virtual Academy. This online K-12 program was a good fit for me as myself and my sister tried to avoid big crowds. A typical school has a ton of germs, and so this worked well. I was able to join classes virtually and get my education. More about homeschooling versus public school in a later episode. My sister and I have a dog, Nash. He is a golden doodle. We train him as a service dog, and he is so lovable and fun to have around. Sometimes he doesn't fit into the category of well-trained service dog. He's got a ton of energy and enjoys lots of treats.
Thanks, Nick. And Nick's older sister, Emma, has spinal muscular atrophy type 1 as well. Emma is 24 years old, and Emma graduated from Liberty University with a bachelor's degree in graphic design. Although she enjoys working with a couple of nonprofit organizations on graphic design work, she has another passion that she is currently pursuing, and that is conservation. So she is currently enrolled in a program through Miami University and the Cincinnati Zoo. She is getting her master's degree in biology with an emphasis on conservation. She is in her 3rd semester. This program is perfect for her because it allows her to complete 90% of the program at home and online. Then every few weeks, she goes to the Cincinnati Zoo for a day and spends 8 hours with her classmates, listening to lectures, visiting some of the behind the scenes with various animals. So far, she's been able to go behind the scenes with the elephant house, the tortoises, and also the penguins. So what about myself and Beth? A little bit of information about us so you get to know us as well, leading up to us having our 2 kids, Emma and Nick. So Beth and I, we actually have been dating since about 1991. I was going into my freshman year of high school, and Beth was going into her sophomore year of high school, and we ended up meeting actually through some mutual friends. We went to a concert down at Riverbend here in Cincinnati, went to the Damn Yankees Bad Company concert, hit it off, had a great opportunity to get to know her at that evening, and then later on that week, we actually were in band camp together. So I was in marching band, and she was in the color guard. I was in the drum line, played the drums, and she was in the color guard. And that coming week, we had a chance to really get to know each other and connect, and had asked her to become my girlfriend. So we actually ended up dating for a total of 8 years, all the way through high school, all the way through college. I can remember my senior year of high school having an opportunity to kind of, all right, what do I want to do with the rest of my life? I came very close to kind of pulling the trigger on going into the Air Force because I wanted to fly airplanes, and I thought that was going to be a good opportunity. But kind of pivoted my senior year because my relationship with Beth was so important, and thought that I wanted to be able to stay home close. And she was going into her freshman year at Xavier University. And so I made a decision my senior year of high school to stay and focus on music. And so I ended up majoring in music education and ended up attending Miami University. And so it was about an hour or so commute back and forth to be able to come visit, or for her to come visit me up in Oxford. And so we kept that relationship going after those 4 years of high school through the 4 years of college as well. And so it was the summer of 1998. I asked her to be my wife here in Cincinnati. We had a date planned And that night, I was a BB riverboat cruise and up in Eden Park here in Cincinnati, had an opportunity to propose to her and ask her to be my wife. And so we ended up getting married about a year later in the summer of 1999, which is the year I graduated from college. It wasn't that long that Beth became pregnant with Emma, and we had our first child. So Emma was born on December 21st, 2000, and we welcomed her into the world. She was completely normal at the time, and I'm going to tell you kind of a little story of how we got into this whole accessible living with Ninja Nick and how that all came to be and how it came to fruition. So Emma was born, like I said, on December 21st of 2000. And for the first few months, she seemed completely normal. She was reaching some of the milestones you'd expect as a parent. But after about 5 or 6 months, we realized she was not meeting some of those milestones. So we ended up making an appointment with our pediatrician, and the pediatrician recommended going down to Cincinnati Children's, where we had another appointment with the neurologist, and the neurologist ended up suspecting that it was a disease called spinal muscular atrophy. We had no idea at that time what that meant, and we ended up confirming that diagnosis with some blood work and also a muscle biopsy. And so once she came back into the room and said, yeah, that has confirmed our suspicion of spinal muscular atrophy type 1, we were, again, had no family background, really had nothing to know about this disease at that point, but quickly found out that it was a very serious and devastating disease, especially at that time, back in 2000, it would have been 2001. The life expectancy for somebody with SMA type 1 was only 2 years of age. So as you can imagine, parents, we were devastated hearing this news from our neurologist. And so over the course of the next year or so, we kind of did everything we could to try to make her comfortable and did everything we could to help her. But at the same time, we kind of put learning more about the disease, I guess, on the back burner. And so it wasn't until we ran into some complications that we really took the bull by the horns and really started learning more about the disease and what we could do to help Emma through that difficult time. So I'm going to tell a story about when she experienced a hospitalization when she had her G-tube surgery. It was when August 1st of 2002. So Nick was just about a month from being born at that time. Beth was 9 months pregnant, and we ended up going into the hospital on August 1st of 2002 for Emma's G-tube surgery and ran into some complications after her surgery. The surgery went fine, but after the surgery was done, she did not have success being extubated to her BiPAP machine, which is the breathing machine that was going to help her breathe during that time. And so she failed extubation, and we ended up having to go through that a few different times. And I remember that was extremely scary for us. The parents, again, were dealing with something that's life-threatening in the hospital at the time and had some scary moments. I remember very specifically having some decisions that were made and conversations that we had with the doctors at Cincinnati Children's about, what are our options? And around that time, we found out about a little girl that was 5 years old living up in Columbus, and her name was Madison. And we found out she had SMA type 1, 5 years old, and had the same disease that Emma had. So I was blown away. I remember talking to her mom about this on the phone and wanted to learn everything possible that we could about what are they doing differently? What have they done to kind of help her survive and thrive through her first 5 years of life? And so I hung up the phone that night and felt so encouraged that, hey, we've got somebody else out there that's gone through this. They've given us some advice. And it was around that same time that we found out about a doctor by the name of Dr. Schroth, who is an expert in SMA and specifically extubating to non-invasive medical equipment like the BiPAP, and kind of learned about what she offered. And so she was, unfortunately, though, in Madison, Wisconsin. So we had some decisions to make. Hey, do we want to try to get Emma on a plane, on a life flight out of Cincinnati, and fly her up to Madison, Wisconsin? And that was kind of the big decision that we were met with. And so one of the things, though, that was an obstacle for us during that hospitalization was the fact that insurance didn't want to pay for it. If you can imagine, putting her on a medical plane and flying her from Cincinnati to Madison, Wisconsin was a huge ordeal. And so we ended up fighting insurance company for the next couple of weeks, trying to get her be able to get paid for by our insurance company to be flown from Cincinnati up to Wisconsin. And so that'll be actually another episode we're going to talk more about in depth later on about how to deal with insurance companies and some of the challenges and how to kind of overcome those obstacles as you're presented with them. So I'm going to tell you now the story. I think it's really interesting. And Nick, I know some of this might be a little bit new for you. The story of right before leading up to when you were born. This is actually just a couple days before you were born and leading up to that and some of the challenges that we had getting out of Cincinnati Children's and up to Madison. So it was August 31st of 2002, and we ended up finally getting approved for the insurance company to pay for the transport. And so we ended up being transported by first by ambulance from Cincinnati Children's over to Lunken Airport, which is about 20 minutes. It wasn't that far away. Got into a medic plane. We had a nurse with us, a doctor, a respiratory therapist, and myself and Emma. Beth, again, was 9 months pregnant at the time with Nick. And so she ended up driving separately with her mom and ended up meeting us up in Madison, Wisconsin. So you can imagine those getting out down to the airport and getting on this plane, and it was kind of a crazy couple hours, to say the least, getting on this medic plane, with all this equipment. Keep in mind, she's intubated at the time. So all the medical equipment and the team that was with us going up onto the plane, flying up and over to Madison, Wisconsin. Beth and her mom drove separately and met up with us when we got there. We got checked into the hospital where we got to meet up with Dr. Stroth and meet her for the first time. And I cannot say enough good things and positive things about Dr. Stroth. She's literally saved Emma's life within those first few days of being up in Madison, Wisconsin. So that night, we kind of got settled into the hospital room, and sure enough, Beth's water broke. And here we are, needing to find another hospital in Madison where she can give birth to Nick. And so we ended up hopping in a car and going across town to, I believe the hospital is called Meriter Hospital, which is just maybe 10, 15, 20 minutes from the University of Wisconsin Children's Hospital. Emma and Jan, that's Emma's grandmother, stayed back in the hospital, of course, and overnight. Beth and I raced off to the other hospital. Beth gave birth later on in the morning. It was September 1st when Nick came into the world and was born. So that next day, I should say really the same day that Nick was born, on September 1st, but later on, was when Emma was successfully extubated to her BiPAP machine. And it was over that course of the next several days that we learned about all this different medical equipment that we had access to now. The BiPAP machine, the cough assist, the suction, the pulse oximeter, learned how to use all this stuff to basically benefit her breathing regimen and be able to do this non-invasively. And so we took as much as we could as far as the information, soaked it up, and really learned over those next few days before he came back home. Nick, in the meantime, he was doing great. He just came out and looked like a normal, healthy baby. And so we ended up being discharged from Meriter Hospital after a couple of days, ended up checking into the Ronald McDonald House, and which is where we stayed for the duration. Somebody was always, of course, with Nick for the duration back at the Ronald McDonald House, and Beth and I and Emma back here at the University of Wisconsin Children's Hospital. And it was the anniversary of the 9/11 terrorist attacks on our country. So it was on 9/11 that we actually ended up flying back to Cincinnati. So Beth and Jan and Nicholas ended up getting into the car and drove back, and myself and Emma flew back on a plane from Madison, Wisconsin back to Cincinnati. And so as you can imagine, the security was beefed up, and it was an interesting flight back home because of all the security and just knowing that that was the year anniversary of the terrorist attacks on our country. Everything went fairly smooth. We did go through some crazy security customs and so forth, but had a successful flight. I got to sit her on my lap and be able to fly home with her, and then we ended up reuniting back in Cincinnati, and the rest is history. Nick was now just about a couple weeks old at that point, and we ended up learning how to deal with SMA in the proper way with Emma, having that non-invasive respiratory equipment. And so it was about another couple months, I would say, that we realized fairly quickly, because we knew what to look for with Nick, that hey, Nick's not reaching some of the milestones now. It appears that he has the same SMA diagnosis as his sister. So we confirmed that as well, and got him the care and help that he needed almost immediately within, really a few weeks after we got back from Madison, realizing he wasn't reaching some of those milestones. And so that was kind of how our story of how we got involved with this accessible living and all the different modifications and things that we had to do along the way to make this work for Emma and eventually for Nicholas as well. For the next 22 plus years, we had learned so much on how to navigate this world, living with two kids with severe disability. In the upcoming episodes of Accessible Living with Ninja Nick, we will dive into some of the following topics. Nick, why don't you tell everyone what to look forward to in the future podcasts?
Accessible gaming, traveling with a disability, as mentioned earlier, tips and tricks during a long hospitalization, wheelchairs, accessible stuff to do in the community where you live, how to deal with insurance companies who deny coverage, technology that can help, nonprofit organizations that can help you and your family, and much more.
All right, a lot of great topics that we'll be discussing over the course of this podcast over in the next several weeks. Thanks, Nick. Well, we hope that you will discover something new in each episode that will help you or your family member.
We hope something will inspire you.
or just take away a small nugget that you can carry with you, that you can take out and use from time to time to help you or your loved one. Thanks for joining us on this first ever edition of Accessible Living with Ninja Nick.
Please subscribe. Please help by sharing this podcast with your friends, neighbors, or family members who might benefit from this podcast.
First few podcasts have been released, and we hope that we continue at least one podcast per week or every other week after that. Please check back frequently for updates and new content.
Bye for now.
And see you next time on Accessible Living with Ninja Nick. Thanks, everybody, and have a great day.